Most traffic stops begin the same way: a flashing light, a short conversation, and a warning, or maybe a ticket. But this stop was different, because the officer standing on that empty desert road believed he had complete control. What he didn't know was that the quiet man inside that old pickup truck was the worst person he could possibly arrest. And in just a few minutes, the entire department would realize a very expensive mistake had just been made. Late afternoon sunlight stretched across the quiet Arizona highway, the kind of road that looked almost forgotten. Miles of dry land, a few scattered buildings, dust drifting across the asphalt whenever the wind decided to move. Daniel Brooks drove slowly down that road in an old pickup truck that had clearly seen better days. The paint was faded, the tires hummed softly against the pavement. Inside the cab, nothing suggested urgency. No loud music, no phone calls, just a man driving calmly, one hand resting lightly on the steering wheel. He had driven roads like this thousands of times. Small towns, quiet counties, places where things often looked peaceful on the surface. But peace, Daniel knew, could be misleading. Sometimes the quietest places hid the loudest problems. Behind him, in the distance, flashing lights suddenly appeared. Blue, then red. The reflections flickered across Daniel's rearview mirror. For a moment, the lights blended with the afternoon sun. Then they grew brighter, closer. Daniel glanced in the mirror once, then again. He sighed quietly and eased his truck toward the side of the road. Dust lifted around the tires as the vehicle came to a stop. The police cruiser pulled in behind him, lights still flashing, engine rumbling. A door opened, boots stepped onto the pavement. Officer Ryan Cole had already decided what kind of stop this would be. Routine, simple, quick. Just another driver on a long list of drivers he had stopped before. What he didn't know was that the man sitting inside that pickup truck was not just another driver, and the decision he was about to make would follow him for the rest of his career. Officer Ryan Cole approached the truck with confident strides. One hand rested near his belt. The other tapped lightly against the side of the truck as he reached the driver's window. Daniel rolled the window down slowly. Warm desert air drifted into the cab. Ryan leaned slightly toward the window. His tone was firm, controlled, the tone of someone used to being obeyed. License and registration. Daniel nodded calmly. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and handed the documents over without a word. Ryan glanced at the license briefly, then looked back at Daniel. He expected something: nervousness, confusion, maybe even irritation. Most drivers showed at least one of those things, but Daniel showed none. His posture was relaxed, his breathing steady, his eyes calm. That calmness made Ryan uncomfortable, because calmness, in his experience, usually meant one of two things. Either someone was hiding something, or they thought they were smarter than the officer standing in front of them. Ryan looked back down at the license. Daniel Brooks. He said the name slowly, then looked up again. "Do you know why I stopped you?" Daniel shook his head gently. "No, officer." Ryan narrowed his eyes slightly. "You rolled through a stop sign about a mile back." Daniel paused for a moment, then nodded once. "If that's the case, I apologize." The answer was polite, too polite. Ryan felt a flicker of irritation, because polite answers often sounded like sarcasm when they came from someone who looked this calm. Ryan stepped back from the truck. He turned toward his cruiser, but something about the situation didn't sit right with him. The man hadn't asked questions. He hadn't argued. He hadn't even looked worried. That kind of calm sometimes meant trouble. Ryan returned to the truck a few minutes later. Daniel was exactly where he had been before, hands visible, eyes forward, still calm. Ryan rested his hand against the truck door. "Step out of the vehicle." Daniel looked at him quietly. "May I ask why?" Ryan's tone hardened. "Step out of the vehicle." Daniel opened the door. He stepped out slowly. The sun cast long shadows across the road. Ryan circled the truck once. His eyes scanned the vehicle carefully. Inside the truck bed were only a few ordinary items: a toolbox, an old cooler, a folded jacket. Nothing suspicious. But Ryan's instincts were already convinced something wasn't right. He turned back toward Daniel. "Where are you coming from?" "Just passing through." "Passing through where?" Daniel tilted his head slightly. "Phoenix." "And where are you headed?" "Still deciding." Ryan let out a short laugh. "Still deciding." He repeated the words as if they were ridiculous. Daniel didn't respond. The silence stretched between them. A car passed slowly on the road nearby. The driver glanced toward the scene. Ryan felt the familiar pressure of being watched. And suddenly he felt like the one losing control of the situation. That feeling irritated him more than anything else, because control was what the badge represented. Control, authority, certainty. And right now, none of those things felt solid. Ryan stepped closer. "Turn around." Daniel looked at him calmly. "I'm sorry?" Ryan's voice sharpened. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back." Daniel didn't move. He simply studied the officer for a moment, not with anger, not with fear, but with something that looked almost like disappointment. "Officer," Daniel said quietly, "are you sure you want to do this?" Ryan's jaw tightened. That sentence sounded like a challenge, and challenges were not something Ryan tolerated during a traffic stop. He stepped forward quickly, took Daniel's arm, and pulled it behind his back. Metal cuffs clicked loudly in the quiet desert air. The sound echoed across the empty road. Another patrol car arrived moments later. 2 officers stepped out. They looked confused. Ryan spoke first. "Possible obstruction." Daniel stood calmly beside the truck, hands cuffed, still silent, still composed. One of the officers glanced at him curiously. "Sir, do you understand why you're being detained?" Daniel nodded slowly. "I understand the decision that was made." Ryan scoffed. The calmness again. It was almost unsettling. Then Daniel spoke again. One simple sentence. "You may want to call your supervisor." Ryan shook his head. "We're fine here." Daniel said nothing else. 10 minutes later, another vehicle approached. A dark police SUV. It slowed as it reached the scene, then stopped. Sergeant Laura Bennett stepped out. She had been in law enforcement long enough to recognize tension the moment she saw it. 3 officers, 1 man in handcuffs, a quiet road. Something about the scene already felt wrong. She walked toward Ryan. "What's going on?" Ryan explained quickly. "Traffic stop, suspicious behavior, possible obstruction." Laura glanced toward Daniel. He stood quietly beside the truck, dust swirling gently around his boots. She walked over. "Sir, do you have identification?" Daniel nodded slightly. "It should be in the officer's possession." Laura looked toward Ryan. Ryan handed her the wallet. Laura opened it. She expected to see a driver's license, maybe a credit card. Instead, her eyes stopped on a small metal badge inside the wallet. Not a police badge, something different, something federal. Her expression changed instantly. She looked up at Daniel, then back at the badge, then at the identification card beside it. Her voice dropped, quiet, controlled. "Take the cuffs off." Ryan frowned. "What?" Laura looked directly at him. "Now." The officers moved quickly. The cuffs were removed. Daniel rubbed his wrists lightly. He didn't appear angry or even surprised. Laura handed the wallet back with both hands. "Mr. Brooks." "I'm very sorry." Ryan looked confused. "What's going on?" Laura turned toward him slowly. "This man is a federal civil rights investigator." Silence fell over the road, the kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. Ryan stared at Daniel, trying to process what he had just heard. Laura continued, "He's been traveling through several counties investigating complaints of excessive force and unlawful detentions." Ryan's stomach tightened. Laura glanced briefly toward the patrol cars, then back at Daniel. "Were you recording this interaction?" Daniel gave a small nod. Yes. Ryan felt the ground shift beneath his confidence. The badge on his chest suddenly felt heavier, not powerful, heavy. No one spoke for several seconds. Wind moved slowly across the empty road. Daniel looked at Ryan, not with anger, not with satisfaction, just with quiet seriousness. "Officer Cole," he said calmly. Ryan swallowed. "Yes, sir." Daniel shook his head gently. "You don't have to call me sir." He paused, then added softly, "But you should remember something." Ryan waited. Daniel continued, "Respect doesn't turn on and off with a badge." The words were not loud, but they carried more weight than shouting ever could. Laura stepped forward. "We'll make sure this situation is properly documented." Daniel nodded. "I'm sure you will." Ryan looked toward the road, unable to meet Daniel's eyes, because in that moment, he understood something he had never fully understood before. Authority could create confidence, but respect had to be earned, and respect could disappear the moment someone abused that authority. The sun was nearly gone now. Long shadows stretched across the road. Daniel climbed back into his pickup truck. The engine started with a low rumble. He looked once more toward the officers standing beside their vehicles. Then he spoke one final time. "Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity." He closed the door. The truck pulled slowly back onto the road. Dust lifted briefly behind it, then settled again. Officer Ryan Cole stood silently beside the cruiser, watching the truck disappear into the desert horizon. For the first time since he became a police officer, he felt the weight of his badge differently, not as a symbol of power, but as a reminder of responsibility. Because sometimes the biggest mistakes in life don't happen during chaos. They happen during certainty. When someone becomes so sure of their authority, they forget the one thing authority was supposed to protect: respect. Question for viewers: do you think authority changes people, or does it simply reveal who they really are?